This plaintiff knew it would take a camera to prove in court that he had a contract with her.
That's not correct.
I'm recording this as a witness just in case I need to take her to court.
I mean, I've never seen someone who actually has a video promissory note. I'm not mad at you.
And later, he wants to know who drove her car into his building.
He followed the trail of radiator fluid, parts of the car.
He followed the car to the defendant's home.
Yes.
So at that point, you had no idea that your car had been damaged in an accident?
No.
So it was stolen?
I asked the questions in my courtroom, not you.
The plaintiff, Terrence Benford, says he loaned money for a car to the mother of his 2 boys, but she used the money on herself instead. But the defendant, Amanda Barlo, claims Terrence forced her to take the loan, then forgave it, and knew she used the money for unpaid bills. Joining her in court is her friend, Trudy Reed.
Remain seated and come to order. Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Faith Jenkins presiding. Your Honor, this case is Benford versus Barlo.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, Mr. Benford, you are suing the defendant, Amanda Barlo, for $2,500. You say she failed to repay a loan.
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you tell me about your case?
Okay, well, I met the defendant in 2006. At the time, I was 23. I was single. I thought she was attractive. You know, she had a nice tan going on.
Can you speak up a little bit?
She had a nice tan. You know, hair was done. Looking, you know, looked attractive, you know, and I was single. So, you know, I sparked conversation with her, sparked a relationship up with her. We dated for 6.5 years. We have 2 children together.
Okay.
Yeah, we got a 5 and a 4-year-old. They beautiful, 2 sons. But, you know, I mean, things was never good between me and her because we're not compatible, but we end up having children. I try to stick around and make it work.
And it took you 6.5 years to figure that out?
Well, actually, I knew their process having children. I was finna leave. Then she came home with a pregnancy test, said she was pregnant. So me being a man, you know, not having really a good father figure, I wanted to stay in the household.
Well, she didn't get pregnant by herself.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
got her pregnant. That's why I wanted to stay around and take care of my business, which I'm still doing to this day. I pay child support. I take care of my children. I see them when I can. I work 3rd shift, so I mean, the weekends are available to me to see them.
What do you do for a living?
I work for a pharmaceutical company, McKesson. I'm a material handler.
When you say 3rd shift, what does that mean?
I work overnights.
Overnights, okay.
Yeah, I work
Well, I
overnights.
think it's
He doesn't always
commendable.
take
I
them
do think
every
it's
weekend.
commendable that you do
I
try
do.
to spend as much time as you can with your kids.
And I mean, she know before child support was ordered, I took care of the children. I mean, when they first came out of the womb, I got 2 boys, you gotta pay $50 for the circuses. I've been there. I always took care of the children. That's not an issue. Financially, emotionally, I mean, that's my responsibility, my obligation, it's a pleasure. I shouldn't have to come out of my pocket with extra money to take care of responsibilities that are recovered through the child support. And that's my only
It's
issue
not
with
that
her
much.
getting the child support from me. The money isn't being used probably. I see her with her nails done. She might have on some new clothes, you know, I mean, you know.
Well, what's going on?
not
What's your
correct.
response
What's
to
going
that?
on?
That's not correct.
So what's your response to that? Is that true?
I do not go buying myself new clothes. I can't even tell you the last time I bought myself something
That's
new.
not true.
You know, I do buy my kids clothes. I send them to his house and whatever. You know, that's his, he has clothes for
Why would
them
you do
at
that
his
for them?
house. So why is it my responsibility to make sure they're dressed properly
Because
for
I'm
him
paying
to
for
go
their
somewhere?
clothes.
You understand? And this is where the child support comes into play, where he thinks that's all the financial responsibility that there should be,
You don't
nothing
even
more,
make
nothing
sense.
less.
Well, I think he's saying that he thinks you're putting your wants over the needs of the kids. And
Yeah,
you're
that's
saying that
not
that's not the
correct.
You
case?
get it?
That's not correct.
Okay.
My children have everything that they want and need, way more than his house. His house, they
Everybody
don't even
got
have a
an
bedroom.
opinion.
They don't even have a bedroom at his house.
I got a 1-bedroom. You know,
But
I'm a
he
single
had the
man.
opportunity to get a
What does that
2-bedroom
mean?
and chose not to get it.
She came to me
But
a
at
few
least
months
he's
ago.
spending time with his kids. I mean, that's the most important
You know
part
what
of
I'm
that,
saying?
right?
Yeah, he's
that they're
doing
there.
that. Yeah.
And
I mean,
take
because
care of
I
financially.
know a lot of fathers who choose
Not
to be involved in their children's lives. So the fact that he is so involved, you know, doesn't matter that he only has a 1-bedroom. It doesn't matter if it's a studio. Whatever he has, he's making it accessible so he
Thank
can
you.
spend time with his kids. That's the most important part.
Correct.
So, you know, let's give credit where credit is due on that issue.
Yeah.
What's the lawsuit about? Tell me about the $2,000 loan.
Okay, I loaned her some money. I loaned her. She's a thief and a liar. You know what I
No,
mean?
that is not true.
And so you
just
loan a
lied
thief
right
and
there.
a liar money?
Yeah,
Is that
so
what
he
you
would
do?
loan me the money. That
She's
doesn't
very
make sense.
deceitful. She's a thief and a liar, and the reason why I loaned her the money because she needed a vehicle. It gets cold in Minnesota. I didn't want my
Right.
children out in the cold, you know, on public transportation.
Coming up, Judge Faith takes a moment in court to commend this plaintiff for his good deeds as a dad.
I see a lot of deadbeat dads come through this court. Keep up the good work, and you are lucky. You're lucky that he's the father of your kids.
And later, Douglas gets called out on his bad behavior,
He drug my name through the courts.
and Stephanie gets put in the penalty box.
Miss Hamilton.
He's not giving
Miss
nobody
Hamilton,
time to do
have
anything.
Have a seat, because you won't stop talking.
The plaintiff, Terrence Benford, says he loaned money for a car to the mother of his 2 boys, but she used the money on herself. The defendant, Amanda Barlo, claims the plaintiff forced her to take the loan and knew she used the money for unpaid bills.
Tell me about the $2,000 loan.
So, against my better judgment, I decided to loan her $2,500. I wrote a contract out, and I videoed it because of the type of person she is. I knew we were coming to this. I knew she wasn't just gonna do the right thing and pay me.
What do you mean you videoed the contract?
I videoed her signing the contract saying that she owes me $2,500.
Terrible.
Well, it sounds like he's covering his bases. I mean,
Exactly.
I've never seen someone who actually has a video promissory note, so I'm kind of intrigued by that.
She's a thief and a liar. I had to do that. You know,
Do we have a copy of the video? Let me look
I've
at
been
it.
her money in the
He borrowed me
past.
$2,000.
Hold on a
He
second,
only
let's look at
put
the video.
$1,700 in my hand.
I'm recording this as a witness just in case I need to take her to court. 'Cause by March 1st, 2014, I should have all my money back, which is $2,000. If it's late, she owes me $2,500.
I don't even think she knows what's going on at the time.
Listen, I'm not.
that
I'm not
facial
mad at
expression.
you for that. You're not contesting that you signed this
I
document
did
and that's
sign
you in the
it,
video,
yes.
correct? Okay.
Now, let me
so
just make something correct. When
why
he
didn't you
say-
pay back the money?
And I don't even know what you're talking about. You borrowed $2,000. You didn't pay me by March 1st. $2,500 is owed to me.
I mean, it's a pretty clear contract. So
But
what's your
he also
defense?
forgave the loan
Why would I do that for?
prior to the month of the contract
That's
in
not
March.
true.
And this is why I brought her.
I don't know why
She
you
was
bought
Okay,
there.
who's your witness?
Trudy.
Step up, please.
That's not true, Your Honor. I want
Hi.
my money. I'm
What's
about
your
my
name?
money.
Trudy,
How do you know the defendant?
friends.
How long have you been friends with her?
We've known each other for about 8 years.
What were you a witness to?
They were discussing the loan, and
When was
she was
this?
saying, like last month, and he was saying how he wants the money, and she said she's not going to pay the money. And
Thank you.
and then
February of 2013.
she's not going to pay the money, and then you said, whatever. Then
Why were you?
Could
Why
I
did you
go ahead
tell
and contract?
him?
I was going to take her to court. I already knew that.
Why did you tell him you were not going to pay the money back? What was
Because
your
I don't
reason?
get enough in child support.
Hold on a second.
That
I want to
sounds
hear.
crazy.
I'd like to hear her response to this.
Because she don't get enough for child support, so her response.
Yeah, 437 is not enough. I
Okay,
mean, I
so
have 2
if you don't
kids.
get enough for child support, you have an option. You already have a court order, so that means you went to court before. If you don't feel that you get enough for child support, then you go back to court and you ask the court to increase the child support. But you don't take it upon yourself to become a court and decide that I'm going to take this $2,000 and use it for child support because I feel you owe me that money. That's not how it works. You have a binding agreement that you sign to pay back $2,000. If you want an additional child support, you go to court and you ask them to do that. You understand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Your Honor. See,
What else do you have to say, Trudy?
he said, just forget about it.
I ain't
Did you say that?
No, why would I say that? That's $2,500. I want my money, you know. But the thing is, okay, since the child support is an issue, I pay almost $700 a month child support for back pay because she's been on public aid since she was 18 before she even had children. I
That
owe
is
money
not correct.
for her being on assistance since she was 18 years old. She got pregnant about 18, 19. So I owe all this money while I was
not
even in the
pregnant at 18
household
or 19.
taking
I was
care of
pregnant
my
at 20
children
and
at the same
21.
time. This consecutively going on, I always been taking care of my children. I supposed to do, that's no problem. You know, she's saying she wants more child support. I want more evidence that you take care of the children with the money. I mean, you know, your nails are done. Let's show you nails.
All right. Thank you, Trudy. Have a seat. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Barlo, so in this case, it is clear and obvious that we have a contract between two people. You agreed to pay back $2,000, and if you didn't pay it back by March 1st of this year, you agreed to pay an additional $500. Your defense to that is that he forgave the loan. Well, when it comes to written contracts, the only way that you can amend a written contract is by another written contract. An oral agreement cannot do that. I don't believe you in the first place, but in the second place, you can't amend a written agreement contract with an oral agreement. It has to be written.
Okay.
So,
well, she was my witness. She was there, so.
She's irrelevant.
I understand that, but the law is what the law is.
Yeah.
And so you owe him the $2,500. As for you, Mr. Benford, I do want to just speak on the fact that you are in your children's lives. That's what you should be doing. But I see a lot of deadbeat dads come through this court, people who take care of their kids and send money to their kids, but they're kicking and screaming the entire way. It's not what they want to do. But you recognize that it is important for you to be a father figure in your sons' lives and to be role models for them. I think you are doing that, and I want to commend you on that.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. And you are lucky. You're lucky that he's the father of your kids. Judgment for the plaintiff, $2,500.
Go ahead and wait here a minute. Thank you, sir.
Plaintiff Douglas Bradford says the defendant owes him for the cost to repair his building when a car belonging to her was involved in a hit and split. Defendant Stephanie Hamilton admits it was her car, but says she was out of town when the accident happened, so she doesn't owe the plaintiff anything. She's countersuing for defamation of character.
Okay, Mr. Douglas Bradford, you are suing the defendant Stephanie Hamilton for damages to your building as a result from a hit-and-run car accident.
That is correct.
And Ms. Hamilton, you are countersuing for defamation of character, and you also say you don't owe because you were not the driver of the car involved in the accident. Okay, Mr. Bradford, we'll start with you. So what happened here? Did you witness the accident?
No, I did not. On Sunday, the day of the accident, I was informed that a vehicle did hit my building. I could not get a police report until Tuesday when I went down to the Toledo Police and I picked up the report from the Toledo Police.
What were you told about the accident? What happened?
After reading the police report, it was pretty obvious that the vehicle that she owned lost control on LaGrange Street, hit a parked car, did $10,000 damage to the parked car, climbed up over the curb, went 15 feet across the sidewalk, and hit my building, scraped the entire front of the building, and then proceeded to leave the scene.
How do you know there was $10,000 worth of damage to a car?
Because the car was owned by a neighbor of mine, and I spoke with him, and he actually filled out a police report himself.
Okay, did anyone witness the accident?
Well, he heard the accident, and he ran out right when it occurred, and he is the one who followed the car over to where she lives, and he is the one who also called the Toledo Police to come and get the car. By the time they arrived, there was no one in the car. He told me it smelled absolutely of a brewery. There was vomit all over the place. It was obvious that whoever was
I'm sorry,
driving
when you
the
say
car.
it smelled like a brewery, what are you referring to when you say it?
The car itself. He went down and he followed the trail of radiator fluid, parts of the car. It lost the front right tire.
He followed the car to the defendant's home.
Yes, which was only a couple of blocks
and
anyway.
he got out of his car, and did he observe who was in the vehicle?
No, because they had already vacated the car. He did flag down the police.
Do you know who was driving the car? Because Ms. Hamilton is saying today she's not responsible, but she wasn't the driver of the car.
I wasn't even in the car.
Ms. Hamilton,
When I talked to the detective down at the traffic bureau, he told me the only recourse I had, because they did not know who the driver was to sue the owner of the car.
Plaintiff Douglas Bradford says the defendant owes him for the cost to repair his building. Defendant Stephanie Hamilton says she was out of town when the accident happened, so she doesn't owe the plaintiff anything. She's countersuing for defamation of character.
when was the first time you learned that your car had been in an accident?
About 7 o'clock in the morning.
On Sunday morning?
Yes, my neighbor come. I just come from out of town. My neighbor come banging at my back door. She said, they're towing your car.
So at that point, you had no idea that your car had been damaged in an accident?
No.
So it was stolen?
Excuse me,
Excuse me?
sir.
Who was
Excuse
driving
me.
the car?
Excuse me. I asked the questions in my courtroom, not you. Go ahead.
Oh, and so then she said, well, I said, I just came from out of town. And she was like, well, just to let you know, this car was, involved in a hit and skip. I said, okay. She said, well, I had to have them to tow it, but whoever was driving this car needs to come downtown to talk to us before we can release the car. And I said, okay.
Where was your son at that time?
My son was over his girlfriend's house.
Because I read your complaint, your answer, and you said that it was your son driving the car.
Right.
So
right. He never once tried to run or did whatever, and the
he never woke you up that morning and told you he'd been in an accident?
No.
And you didn't find that to be strange, that he wrecked your car and didn't even tell you about it?
No, because when he had came, I guess
You weren't upset about that?
He was scared. Of course I was upset about it. I mean, that's my name on the car. So when he did finally go, he went that Monday because the place he had to go to was closed. So he turned himself in that Monday. He went down there. He talked to the detective, gave the detective all the information, and no, he wasn't running. So they had the information. They had the report. They had all of that down there.
What did he tell you about the accident? How did it happen?
My son works 2 jobs. He has
How old is
custody
he?
of his son. He's 29.
Okay.
He has custody of his 2 sons. So he was getting off work. He was in a previous accident like a week or 2 before, and he was on prescription drugs. So he had took drugs.
What kind of accident was he in 2 weeks before?
He was in a bad car accident. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying because most people aren't in, I drive, I've been driving for years and I've never had an accident. Your son had 2 significant accidents in 2 weeks.
He wasn't the driver.
Okay, he was a passenger in the other car?
Right. And so they gave him some prescription drugs at the hospital to take.
And what happened?
So he took it right before he was getting ready to get off work, in which he shouldn't have, but he did. And, he worked 6 days a week, working 2 jobs. So he fell asleep at the wheel and he hit the car.
Why didn't he stay at the scene? Why did he leave and
I guess
drive
he
back
was
to your
scared.
house?
I don't know.
And was he given a
had to wait.
ticket for leaving the scene of an accident?
Yes, he did. And he took on the responsibility.
Is your car insured?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Bradford, do you have photos of damages?
Yes, I do.
May I see it, please?
And I have photos
What were
also.
the damages to the building?
The
You can
damages
just describe
to the
them for me.
building were the foundation blocks were broken. And
One
you can
block.
see
Let's
in
look at this
that-
on the flat
You can
screen.
see, yes, that block is broken. It's a foundation block. It has to be removed and replaced.
And you're being dramatic.
Miss Hamilton.
He's not giving
Miss
nobody
Hamilton,
time to do
have
anything.
a seat. Have a seat, ma'am. Have a seat, because you won't stop talking. Now, I've asked you several times to stop interrupting. Do you have insurance on your building that will cover any of the expenses for?
No.
Okay, so here is what has to happen. Are you ready to behave yourself and stop interrupting me? Or do you
Sure.
want to keep sitting down? You can stay seated
I
if you.
can come back up.
Okay, well, come back up.
Now Judge Faith rules.
So here's the issue in this case. You filed your lawsuit a little too prematurely because she's not the right person to sue in Ohio under your state's law. Just because someone is the owner of a vehicle, that does not mean that they are liable if someone else uses it negligently. And based on the testimony that I've heard, it sounds like your son was negligent when he crashed the car, and then he also left the scene of an accident, which is not good.
Right.
Just because she is the parent, that does not impute liability to her automatically. So in order for you to recover in this case, first, now that you know her son's name and you know her insurance company, you can follow up with her insurance company, sue the insurance company, and see if you can get coverage for the damages to your building that way. If that doesn't happen and you have out-of-pocket expenses, then you have to go back to small claims court. But you have to sue the right person, and Ms. Hamilton is not the right person because she was not driving the car that night. Do you understand? What is your counterclaim about?
My counterclaim is because he drug my name through the courts. He drug my name through the courts.
It's
Okay,
right here.
filing a lawsuit
It's
is not
right here on
defamation.
the
Is that what your
transcript
counterclaim is
He
about?
did not even give no time for anything.
On your counterclaim, 0, that's not defamation of character. On your claim, sir, although I do believe that the defendant's son is liable for this accident, you didn't sue the right person. So your case is dismissed. My judgment is for the defendant.
Their day of combating was all fun and games until this happened to his expensive new drone.
Boys and their toys, I tell you.
And later, this couple's love affair was in a holding pattern.
So kissing me, showing me affection is now routine. You know, you're a flight attendant. You say the same 3 announcements every flight. That's routine.
You know, she confronted me with the relationship, and then I moved out.
Until emotional turbulence forced one of them to ground the relationship permanently.
That's really serious. And it's really vindictive. And it's really below the belt. You can't mess with somebody's livelihood and their job.
The plaintiff, Rocco Frattaroli, says his drone was destroyed when it collided midair with the defendant's plane. He is suing for damages. But the defendant, Anema, claims it's not his fault. He says Rocco was negligent and knew the risks of collision associated with combating. Joining him in court is his friend, Chris Abencoura.
Remain seated and come to order. Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Faith Jenkins presiding. Your Honor, this case is Frattaroli versus Anema.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, Mr. Frattaroli, you are suing the defendant, Dan Anema, for $5,400. You say he's responsible for damaging your remote-controlled helicopter.
That is correct.
You understand that the statutory maximum in our court is $5,000?
Yes.
Tell me what happened.
I was flying at the RC park. I actually bought this brand new Evo S800. It's a drone RC helicopter. It's a 6 propeller.
When did you buy it?
I bought it on the first week of March 1st.
Okay, and how much did you pay for it?
I paid almost over $9,000 for it.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
and what does it do?
What it does is it's a controlled unit that stabilizes in the air, and it uses GPS functions to go ahead and hold itself in a stable position so that you could add a camera to it and then record whatever you want to film with it.
At some point, you agreed to use your drone to record their helicopters flying around, sort of dogfighting. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, first, Rocco came out there with the drone, and obviously didn't know anything about it. He said he crashed it 4 times prior, and he was asking for help, and was all excited about it. And one of the guys, Rick, had explained to him everything, the safety out there, and he actually told him, we don't fly the helicopters and planes together. They're very dangerous. And basically, if you crash your stuff, we just pick our stuff up, we go home, and then
So when you say
Chris-
you don't fly helicopters and planes together, you're referring to his drone as a helicopter and your planes that you were flying around as the planes?
Correct.
Okay, and you don't want to fly those together. Why?
Actually, in our field, the helicopters are always crashing, the drones are always crashing, and they're just dangerous.
Okay.
So we kind of stay away from them.
So what happens? How did you end up flying together?
Well, Chris actually was he's
Chris, you want to
34
step
years.
up and tell me what happened?
Yeah.
Were you there that day?
Yeah. I was asked by Rocco to kind of help instruct him how to fly this thing because he just had bought it, never flown it before.
Is that true?
Yeah, I just bought it. I've only had it for about a week.
Okay, go ahead.
He said he had crashed it 4 times earlier that morning. Didn't have any success, so he came out to our field looking for help. Everybody pointed him my way.
We have video of this crash, right?
Yes.
So tell me what happens. How do you all get the drone and the planes up in the air together? What happens?
It was May 9th. This was the second day. It was a Sunday. There was going to be the 3rd flight of the day. Rocco wanted to proceed and fly another flight, and I was going to operate the camera. He was going to fly his drone. I kind of stopped him. I said, we shouldn't fly because Dan and Doug were in the air at the time flying together, and they were flying combat, which kind of, they were trying to hit each other in the air.
Is that called dogfighting with
Yes.
2 planes? Okay.
Yeah, dogfighting, combating, but they're intentionally trying to hit each other.
Okay.
So I told Rocco, we should wait.
Why do you put your drone up in the air while the 2 helicopters are flying around dogfighting?
Airplanes.
Well,
Was it to record the activity?
Yes, it was to
Okay.
record their activity as they were doing the dogfighting. So what happened was
Your Honor, it was a demo reel for his business.
Okay, is that true? That's fine. I just want to know. Why did you want to record the dogfight?
well, I told the defendant I was going to put it on their video, on their website also.
Okay, so let's
Yeah.
see what happens. So this is your drone recording everything that's happening now, right?
That is correct.
And those are the airplanes circling around?
Yes. And you can see.
Okay, let's hear it. Boys and their toys, I tell you.
And we're just out there just, we're a bunch of retired guys mostly and relaxing and have a good time out there.
There's nothing wrong with
And
that. So your plane hit his drone?
Hit the drone.
But how did that happen? Were you supposed to be that close to the drone? That was an accident, right?
Yeah, it's hard to determine where they're at up there when you're flying them. I just try to come around and make a circle around it for him so he can get his video for his business. And when it crashed and hit the ground, we were actually all shocked at the moment.
Coming up, when playing with the big boys got too rough, he took his toys and went to court.
He started being a baby about everything. He said, I'm going to call the police on you. They're going to come out to your house. And I told him, I said, you know what, Rocco, we're done talking.
But I want to explain something to you. Accidents happen, dogfighting them and intentionally trying to hit them in the air, and you were aware of that situation.
And later, Judge Faith calls this feuding couple out in court for bad behavior.
I was a prosecutor, did criminal cases in Manhattan, and I witnessed women who were abused on a daily basis. And it's cases like yours that make it difficult for people to take women with real issues seriously.
Rocco says his drone was destroyed when it collided midair with the defendant's plane. He is suing for damages. But Dan claims it's not his fault. He says Rocco was negligent and he knew the risks associated with flying his drone in a dogfight.
I told Rocco, we can fix this. He was panicking, which, I understand.
Right.
But they inspected it and they said that it's not as bad as you think. Doug said, I'll actually fix it for you. He had a problem with that. And I said, look at Doug, let him send it in to the factory. And you know what? I'm a stand-up good guy. I'll offer you, and I did offer him to pay half of it. I don't even know what half is.
Right.
And then I get a call back from him on the 13th, and he says you can pay, the amount of the damage was $1,783.
So why didn't you pay half?
And I offered. I said, I'll call the company, the UAV American, I'll pay half of it. And he says, no, you'll pay the whole thing. And I'm like, no, I only offered for half. He started just being a baby about everything. He said, I'm going to call the police on you. They're going to come out to your house. I'm going to sue you for $10,000 and for all the loss of business that I have. And I told him, I said, you know what, Rocco, we're done talking. Don't even call me again. I hung up the
And that was
phone.
the last time you spoke to him?
That was the last time I spoke to him.
Let's look at the damages. What are we looking at?
What you're looking at is just the pieces to my helicopter here.
Okay. What is this?
That's just, you have the main center motor area, so you could go ahead and put all your electronics on there.
Okay.
And then what you're looking at is the center piece in there is the actual piece where the flight controller sits, and then the battery sits right underneath there.
Okay. Has the drone been fixed?
Yes, the drone was fixed, but to a limited capability.
So you've been using it since then?
Yes, I have.
I'm going to come down and take a look at this because I want to see what exactly this is. I've never basically seen a drone like this. Okay, so how does this work?
Well, how it works is you've got a flight controller on here, and you have a controller that you actually move it up, forward, down, left, right.
Oh, is this a propeller that's broken?
Yes, that is correct.
Oh, okay, I see. So you've been able to operate this without the propellers that are...
No, what happened was since I could not afford to go ahead and get the whole thing replaced, I only had to come up with what was functional.
So how's someone able to fix this? Are they going to put that back on, or you're going to
No,
need a
you
new
cannot
one?
glue these pieces back together. You actually have to replace the entire arm.
Okay.
And as you can see in the video, it was
You
just
have a drone
hovering.
that's intact, right?
Correct.
Let me take a look at this. This is like a smaller...
Smaller.
Oh, okay, I see now. How much did your drone cost?
I paid somebody $250.
Oh, okay, you got a good deal.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Let me explain something to you. Accidents happen, just like car accidents happen when people are driving down the road. I don't think you did anything intentionally here. No. But that doesn't mean that you don't bear some responsibility for the damages to the drone. And you even admitted that and offered to pay half initially, and I really respect that you did that. And I know that you didn't think half was enough, but I want to explain something to you. These guys were flying airplanes and they're dogfighting them and intentionally trying to hit them in the air, and you were aware of that situation when you decided to put your drone up in the air with them. So because of that, I am going to rule that you assumed some of the risk involved with the activity that you decided to engage in. So I'm going to order the defendant to pay you half. So my judgment is for you for the amount of $2,500. Judgment for the plaintiff.
Sure.
Plaintiff Alfonso Thomas says his ex-girlfriend took advantage of his kindness. After the breakup, he is suing for an unpaid cell phone bill and defamation of character. But the defendant, Dee Miller, claims she paid the bill, and the plaintiff is just trying to get back at her. She's countersuing for medical bills and emotional stress.
Okay, Alfonso Thomas.
Yes.
You are suing the defendant, Dejanera Miller,
Yes.
for $3,546. You say she owes you for an unpaid phone bill, termination costs for that phone, and defamation of character.
Yes, sir.
You are countersuing Ms. Miller for $3,908. You say the plaintiff owes you for medical bills and emotional distress.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Thomas, we will start with you. How do you know the defendant?
She's my
Okay.
ex-girlfriend, and we've been together for 3 years.
When did the two of you meet, and how did you meet?
We met online. It was a dating website. We began talking. She was in Alaska, I was in California. Our first year of dating, we were long distance.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a flight attendant. After that first year, she moved out to California with me to my family member's house.
And that was after 1 year?
After 1 year.
Okay, and where did the two of you move in together?
In Berkeley, California.
Okay.
And Berkeley,
What kind of, was it an apartment, a house?
It was a small studio that my family member owned.
Were you paying rent?
Yes, I paid everything. At the time, it's my family member. So, there was times where I was starting off paying rent.
Ms. Miller, let me hear from you.
Right,
What did you
like-
think of the plaintiff when you met him?
I thought he was attractive. He was pretty cool. I don't think he had a shirt on online, so that's what was attractive.
Not necessary.
We did date for a year, and I moved out to Berkeley.
So you moved all the way to California from Alaska.
Absolutely,
It
yes.
must have been kind of serious between the two of you.
Yeah, we
Okay.
discussed marriage. We even did premarital counseling in Alaska. We've been to church together. It was, yes.
Okay, and what happened when you moved out to California?
We were disagreeing a lot, like the last 2 weeks. He had went to work at one point and didn't give me a kiss goodbye. And then I asked him why, and he was like, because I don't want to, this feels like routine. So kissing me, showing me affection is now routine. You're a flight attendant. You say the same 3 announcements every flight. That's routine. How is not giving me a kiss goodbye not routine?
Okay, and so you're living in the studio apartment. What happens? Do you continue to live together, or who moves out?
I moved out. We had a conversation where she confronted me with the relationship, and pretty much it was like a forced breakup. And then I moved out, and I allowed her to stay there.
Coming up, poor sportsmanship in the game of love puts this defendant in the penalty box.
She emailed my CEO.
He terminated the insurance and then did not tell me.
And because the relationship ends, you think the solution to a problem is to email the CEOs and executives of the company that he works for with your personal drama.
The plaintiff is suing his ex-girlfriend for an unpaid cell phone bill and defamation of character. But the defendant claims she paid the bill. She's countersuing for medical bills and emotional stress.
So let's get to the lawsuit. You are suing for $546.47 for an unpaid phone bill and termination. What's that about?
Yes, ma'am. Pretty much the phone bill, I gave her, I told her about the end of 2013, I was like, listen, as I cut off the benefits, I cut off the phone bill as well.
What do you mean by benefits?
That is incorrect right there.
What do you mean by benefits?
The
You cut off
benefits
what
as in
benefits?
flight benefits, medical benefits.
So she was on your medical
Yes,
benefits?
she was still on there as we was broken up.
How long did you allow her to remain on your benefits?
For
after you
6
broke up?
months
Wow.
after we broke up. I was
Longer
there.
than that.
Why did you do that?
Just because I still love her. I still want the best for her.
But was
Take
there
her.
an agreement with her, sir, that you would get this phone and she would be responsible for it?
Yes.
The reason why he terminated the phone wasn't because I wasn't paying it, it's because I wouldn't meet with him.
Let's get to your defamation claim. You also have a claim for defamation of character. What's that about?
She emailed my CEO a lot of other top leaders within my company.
Absolutely.
Pretty much.
The CEO of your company?
The CEO of my company.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And, you know, I've had to explain this.
What was the reason?
It's for a personal issue of our medical bills.
He terminated the insurance and then did not tell me.
Why do you think the CEO would care about a flight attendant terminating the insurance of his girlfriend? You think the CEO really cares? You just said that he cut off your phone out of spite.
Right.
But now you're messing with someone's job. You cannot do that. You can't mess with somebody's livelihood and their job. And because the relationship ends, you think the solution to a problem is to email the CEOs and executives of the company that he works for with your personal drama.
He terminated the insurance without telling me.
I mean,
All
there
he
are
had to do was
plenty
send a
of
text
women
and
out
tell
there
me.
that would appreciate a guy like him who did all the things that he did for your relationship.
He wasn't doing
You don't
okay,
mess with somebody's job and his employment. He could have lost his job. What's your counterclaim about?
Okay, so with the medical bills that weren't covered, all he had to do was let me know that he had took me off, so then that way I could have made other arrangements. All he had to do was send a text.
You're
I took you
suing
off.
him for your medical bills.
Okay, look.
I mean, I'm just a little stunned by this. You pay your own medical bills. You get your own health insurance. He doesn't owe you for that. He was doing that out of the kindness of his heart because he could.
He was doing it to
but
hold it over my head as a
He does not
control.
owe you anything. He doesn't owe you for that. What happened with the emotional stress and the temporary restraining order?
Okay,
that you wrote about in your papers?
Yes, so with the emotional distress, he was always trying to make contact with me.
So you go down to court.
Yes.
And you get a restraining order ex parte, which means he's not there. He doesn't even know that you're going to court. And what did you tell the judge why you needed a restraining order?
I didn't go before a judge.
What did you tell the court as to why you needed a restraining order? Because they granted you a temporary restraining order, right?
Yeah, because of the harassment. Because he was coming by the house. I felt like he was coming by the house to see about my whereabouts. And then when he would come by, he would text me knowing that I was home. And then he's always trying to meet up. I didn't want to meet with him.
So based on everything you just told me, you had no basis to go down to court and get a temporary restraining order against him. None whatsoever. I was a prosecutor, did criminal cases in Manhattan, and I witnessed women who were abused mentally, physically, and emotionally on a daily basis. And they came down to court and they had to go to court. There are real women with real issues of abuse in this country. They have to go down to court and get restraining orders. And then there are people like you who abuse the system because you have a vendetta against your ex-boyfriend. You go down there and it's cases like yours that make it difficult for people to take women with real issues seriously when they go down to court and try to get help. You can't do that. You're abusing the system.
I don't feel that I was. He left me. He wanted to be done. I was done.
Your counterclaim is dismissed.
And now, Judge Faith rules.
You bent over backwards to do a lot of things for your girlfriend, including putting her on your health insurance on your job. That leads me to believe that because you were paying the rent, paying most of the utilities, paying for most of the household items, you got her the phone too. And you told me today that it was your choice to terminate that contract. So she's not responsible for that. And listen, I empathize with you because I think you did a lot of things that you didn't have to do. And you did it because you were nice. And frankly, you sound really ungrateful today.
No, I was grateful during the time.
But in the end, I don't think she owes you for the phone. I don't think you've met your burden of proof that there was an agreement, and that agreement was that she would pay for termination costs. However, I think when you mess with someone's job and their employment and you email the CEO of their company, that's really serious. And it's really vindictive, and it's really below the belt. You cannot do that. And that is defamation of character, because I saw the email, and in the subject line, you put employee misconduct. He wasn't committing any misconduct. He was being nice to you. He was helping you.
He was doing it
so
out of
my
spite.
judgment on your defamation of character claim, I am going to grant you some relief on your defamation of character claim, and I'm ordering you to pay the plaintiff $500, judgment for the plaintiff.
A chef's promise for a dream wedding dinner leaves a very bitter taste.
Well, I'm not a caterer at all. To start out with, I am a private chef.
I find that very interesting since his business card said Big Rob's Catering.
They only get one shot at their wedding, and it is your job to make it right the very first time.
And this tenant says her landlord's negligence made her sick.
And I told him, I said, Chuck, I'm trying to live in your apartment, but this not working out, because you don't want to do nothing. You're a slum landlord, and you got all my money, and I just moved in here.
I'm a right now type of person. If there's an issue, you call me, I'm Johnny on the spot. If I would have known about it then—
Show me proof that the leaks were fixed.
Plaintiffs Leslie Carman and Russell Carman are suing the chef they hired for Russell's wedding to refund half of the catering fee. Defendant Robert Lynn says, according to his contract, he owes no refund.
Remain seated and come to order. Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Faith Jenkins presiding. Your Honor, this is Carman and Carman versus Lynn.
Thank you, Barbara. Leslie Carman and Russell Carman?
Yes.
You are suing the defendant who was a caterer at your wedding, sir?
That's correct.
Go ahead, what happened?
My son and precious daughter-in-law decided to finally get married after being engaged for a long time. And I had known...
Thank you, everyone.
I had been to a little venue south of Houston for a previous event, and it was a beautiful venue, and the food was fabulous. And so I approached the owner about us possibly having the reception at this venue. And at the time I approached her, she said, "Oh, I know this young and upcoming chef, and you will be so happy." And so we made arrangements, and we met with Chef Rob. He just talked about how wonderful his food was and how what a great chef he was and how happy we were gonna be. And my husband and I went because they were paying for their wedding themselves, and we offered as their mother and father to pay for the reception.
Okay, got it.
To
So
help
you
them.
hired the defendant?
Yes, I hired the defendant.
How long have you been in the catering business?
Well, I'm not a caterer at all. To start out with, I am a private chef. There's a difference between catering, which is unfortunately just a bunch of reheating and serving food. I come in and I try to prepare a nice meal for people and try to give them something that they can be proud of.
How long have you been a chef?
I've been a chef for 2 years now. I've been working in the food industry for 10 years.
I find that very interesting since his business card said Big Rob's Catering.
Well, I carry the business cards for my company.
But you have catering on your business card?
No, ma'am.
We met with him on that night. I gave him a non-refundable deposit on the night that we met with him.
Was that prior to you having the tasting?
Yes, ma'am.
In hindsight, that probably wasn't a good idea, right?
No, ma'am, that was not a good idea at all.
So what kind of food did you ultimately decide to have at the wedding?
We did ultimately decide on the Mexican food, but that was after a failed tasting of a pasta dish that he had played up about how wonderful it was.
So you tried the pasta and didn't like it?
Oh, no, ma'am. And come to find out, he didn't even make the pasta for the tasting. He was too busy, and a friend of his
So I'm just
made
curious,
the pasta.
why did you go forward and continue to hire him and use his services if you
Because
didn't
I
like
had
the pasta?
$450.
And that was
We're not
non-refundable?
rich. Yes, it absolutely was placed on the one referral.
Do you have a copy of the contract? That
Yes,
you
ma'am, I do.
Let me see it. So you ultimately decided to have Mexican food at the wedding. Tell
Yes,
me
ma'am.
about the tasting.
After we had the initial tasting with the Italian option, my wife and I were extremely underwhelmed, but we decided, well, we're in for this $400. Let's see what other options might be available. So Chef Rob kindly offered to have a second tasting for us.
No, I beg your pardon.
At an additional cost of $135.
What happened at the tasting?
He came over to my place, prepared the meal, and Your Honor, it was fantastic.
Who drafted this contract?
Me. I did, Your Honor.
At the top of the contract, it says Rob's Event Catering.
Thank you.
I mean, I think you might be confused about what you do.
It was a contract that I had previously used with the same event. And so at that point, I was working with another chef, or my chef, and he said, well, we need to change you up because this is not what you do.
Okay, so take me to the wedding.
Oh.
So you're at the wedding reception. The wedding has happened, and I assume that everything went well at the ceremony.
It was absolutely gorgeous.
Wonderful. By the way, do you have a picture of you and your bride?
Yes, I do.
Beautiful, wonderful, very nice. You get to the wedding reception, what happens with the food?
Well, we have a cocktail hour. I have since found out from our guests that they were out on the portico for anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes before any food was even produced for the cocktail hour. They had just come from having their pictures done, had not been out to the cocktail hour very long, and the venue owner came and said he's plating the food. And I said, okay, you know, let's go. And so I hurried everybody in. We sat down. After a few minutes, a waiter dressed in blue jeans and a shirt at a nighttime wedding started bringing food out.
Had you discussed with the defendant what the servers were going to wear?
No, we
Not
didn't.
at all.
I assumed that a nighttime formal wedding with long dresses and that the staff would come dressed appropriately for that
Did you think it was
event.
appropriate for them to wear jeans?
Yes, ma'am, I did. When you're outside Houston, Texas, this is what we wear. I'm wearing the same thing today as I wore that evening, besides the fact that I was wearing a chef coat.
Well, but it's not your wedding. Why didn't you go to the plaintiff and say, is it okay if we wear jeans to
I
this
did in
evening event?
in the first meeting, ma'am.
No.
I said, this is what I wear. This is what I will be wearing.
I mean, you're lucky you didn't run into a bridezilla, because I can tell you right now,
Well, we didn't.
I would have told
ma'am,
you to go back home
We
and
didn't
change.
run into a bridezilla. We ran into a mother-in-law.
Who wrote the check to you? Mother-in-law.
Coming up on Judge Faith.
This is the dinner that when I was giving them their tasting.
And is this how the entree looked at the wedding?
We did our very best to replicate what we had done at the tasting.
And later, it's a gas-tastrophe in her new apartment.
The city called the fire department. By the time they got there, I didn't know they had called them. I was laying on the floor, and they was beating on the door. I couldn't get to them. The gas had got
Because you
to
weren't
me.
feeling well?
Right.
The leaks was fixed within 24 hours.
Plaintiffs Leslie Carman and her son Russell are suing for a partial refund on the cost of Russell's wedding reception dinner. Defendant Robert Lynn says not a chance.
Let's look at the photo.
This is the dinner that when I was giving them their tasting. So I have the carne asada.
And is this how the entree looked at the wedding?
We did our very best to replicate what we had done at the tasting. What is the laughter for? Have you ever worked in the kitchen before?
Because you're sounding sketchy. That's what the laughter's for. Let's go to the next photo. Okay, so what is this?
So this is what we brought as the food.
This is what we were served and was served to our guests.
Are you saying, sir, that
I was not
this
proud of that photo.
dish...
I'm not proud of that plate. No, ma'am.
Oh, so you're not proud of it?
No, ma'am.
So you know you didn't do a good job.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
They only get one shot at their wedding, their first wedding, and it is your job to make it right the very first time.
Yes, ma'am.
And so for you to come in here and tell me that you're not proud of the job you did, but you won't refund their money, why? Why won't you refund their money?
I followed my contract. It states that they do not have time until if there's a payment made, they have 24 hours within that payment to make a complaint.
Your Honor, at the end of the wedding, we were offered the remaining portions of the food.
Do you have a letter from the catering hall?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I have a notarized letter from the catering hall.
May I see that,
I
please?
also, Your Honor, of the remaining portions that he sent home with us, I put some of the remaining portions of meat that we were served that night in my freezer, and I brought it with me from Texas today.
You brought meat?
That's against health code, just saying.
What is that exactly?
This is beef fajita meat from our son's wedding. You can plainly see that that does not look anything like what was shown in the tasting photos.
I'm sorry, how can you bring stuff from how far back? From your freezer?
Ms. Carman, the wedding is over, and I understand that you paid him the remainder of the balance due after the wedding. Why did you do that?
Unfortunately, yes, Your Honor, I did.
Why did you do that if you were so unsatisfied with his service?
Because it was my son's day and my daughter-in-law's day. I just was going to pay him and let things go. On Sunday, I really thought about it. On Sunday evening, I finally had a chance to sit down and talk with my son and daughter-in-law and found out how disappointed my daughter-in-law was. I called the bank on Monday morning to stop payment on the check, and Rob had already presented the check to the bank, or I would have stopped payment on the check, and then we would be in a different situation. I immediately sent him an email outlining all of my complaints, what the poor service, the service was deplorable.
And what was your response to that, sir? About
I contacted the
service?
person that I had the contract with, which was her son.
Why didn't you return her message or her phone call?
Because I deal with the people I have the contract with.
No, not the people who write you the check?
No, ma'am, it's the person that in the state of Texas.
You are
deal
so
with
arrogant. I mean, you are absolutely arrogant. I'm floored by this because she is writing your check. She is paying you, and you won't even have the respect to return her phone call.
Your Honor.
Unbelievable. Hold on a second. Let me just read this letter from the
Owner,
venue.
she suggested that I request a full refund from him.
She recommended you to them. She put her reputation on the line, and she slams you. She does not have a dog in this fight. No, you cannot respond. Frankly, the only response I think you should have at this point is an apology to the plaintiff and his family.
It won't happen.
It may not happen, but you're going to pay them their money. My judgment in this case is for the plaintiff, $868 plus court costs.
If Georgia Johnson is suing her former landlord for a refund of rent, security deposit, and moving expenses. Defendant Chuck Becoat says he maintained the apartment and she didn't pay her rent. He is countersuing for defamation of character.
Ms. Johnson, you are suing the defendant, Charles Becoat, for the return of your security deposit, rent, and moving expenses for a total of $1,477. And Mr. Becoat, you are countersuing for defamation of character for $1,500. We'll start with you, Ms. Johnson. How did you meet the defendant?
Well, first of all, I'll say I relocated March the 1st from Omaha, Nebraska, and I had put my furniture in storage. So his sister-in-law, which we've been friends since 1970. And she said, Charles had an apartment for rent. I said, well, good, because I need a place to stay now to get my furniture out of storage.
You were moving to New York at that time?
I was moving here, yes, and I put my furniture in storage. So I called him, and then we discussed the rent. I asked him how much did he want, because it cost me a lot to move here. So he wanted $700, and I say, well, what about $625? He said, okay. So that was okay.
$650.
Okay, so you're a little bit of a negotiator.
$625.
Did you sign a lease?
No lease. Thank you. Oh, thank you. No lease, because I can leave when I get ready. So anyway, we went to the kitchen. The kitchen cabinets wasn't clean. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute now. What about the kitchen cabinets? Just move in, and then I'll come in and do a little bit at a time.
Okay, and what do you say the agreement was?
Well, what happened was, when she contacted me, I said, you're more than welcome to come see the spot. I was getting ready to rent it anyways. And she's right, I get $700 a month for these apartments. She came, she saw the apartment, she loved the apartment. She got on her cell phone, called her friend, whoever she called, said, yeah, I love it, I want it, and as long as he keep me here, I'm gonna stay here. Okay, so
Had someone lived there prior to her moving in?
And the place wasn't even clean yet.
Tell me about what happened when you found out there was a real issue with the apartment.
Well, I took his word that he was gonna clean it up, do what all he had to do. So I moved in because I wanted to get my furniture out of storage so I wouldn't have to pay that and then pay him. So when I got in there, I gave him like 3 days. The attic, I was falling down in the hole with my heels on, trying to hang my clothes up. So I called him. Every time I found something wrong, I say, Chuck, look, you gotta do something about the attic. Well, my dad's gonna fix this.
Your Honor, can I say something real quick?
Yes.
We didn't know there was issues in the attic until she went up there. What happened was there was a rack up there that she wanted to use to hang her clothes up, and the rack fell. She brought that to my attention, and she brought it to my father's attention also. He fixed it that day, and he fixed the boards that day. I'm a right now type of person. If there's an issue, you call me, I'm Johnny on the spot.
Next on Judge Faith.
I had a birthday party, so I was supposed to cook the macaroni and cheese. That's how I know
that's the day.
The oven didn't work.
Your
when
Honor, that's
when
the
I
day.
tried to cook that macaroni and cheese, I left it on 2 hours. I said, wait a minute, I'm gonna be late for my own party.
Plaintiff Georgia Johnson is suing her former landlord for a refund of security deposit, rent, and moving expenses. Defendant Chuck Becoat is countersuing for defamation of character.
When did you first suspect that there was some kind of, are you referring to a gas leak?
When I was in his apartment 4 days, I kept getting up sick and I couldn't breathe. I'm like, wait a minute, something is wrong.
So 4 days of living there.
Right.
You thought you smelled gas. Did you call the city?
No, I called him back.
No, she didn't.
And I told him, I said, Chuck, I'm trying to live in your apartment, but this not working out because you don't want to do nothing. You're a slum landlord, and you got all my money, and I just moved in here.
At some point, did you call the city and
Yes,
tell
I
them you
did.
thought you smelled gas?
Right.
Did they come out?
The city called the fire department. By the time they got there, I didn't know they had called them. I was laying on the floor, and they was beating on the door. I couldn't get to them. The gas had got
Because
to
you weren't
me.
feeling well?
Right.
Okay, did the city issue a report? Did they give you any paperwork about this gas
You have
leak?
a copy. I think you have a copy. It was from the basement running up to the stove in the kitchen. On my birthday, I had a birthday party, so I was supposed to cook the macaroni and cheese. That's how I know
That's the day.
the oven didn't work.
Your
when
Honor, that's
when
the
I
day.
tried to cook that macaroni and cheese,
That's the
I left
day.
it on 2 hours. I said, wait a minute, I'm gonna be late for my own party.
That's
The
the
stove,
day.
that's when the gas really came out.
That's the day.
And then the next day, excuse me,
Go ahead.
the next day, that's when I called the city, and then they sent the fire department. I couldn't even, they broke the
next
door.
day
They
was
hit
Saturday.
the door.
Okay, and so what did you do when she told you she smelled gas?
When she called me, okay, we talking May.
And she just
May
moved in
8th,
April.
May 8th, she called me. I was on my way to Pennsylvania. She called me, all right? And she informed me that the fire department was there and RG&E was there. I came right back, okay? And I saw the tags. I saw the red marks downstairs. So I called the gas man that day. The leaks was fixed within 24 hours. If I would have known about
Show
it then...
me proof that the leaks were fixed.
They wasn't fixed while I was living there.
It was fixed.
Well, the problem is she lived there for however many days with 6 gas leaks in the unit, and it's your responsibility
Your Honor,
to check and
if
make sure that that's
she
not
never-
happening.
she
She
never-
doesn't have to live with gas leaks,
Your
sir.
Honor,
She doesn't have to.
When the stove didn't work on the 26th, okay, that's the only time that we smelled gas in that apartment because the oven didn't work.
It was
Okay,
coming through.
and I didn't get contacted by the city
RG&E,
or
the gas company
by the
came,
gas company
judge.
until the 7th.
So you have
The
a
8th.
certified letter here from, who is this person?
That's my uncle.
It's a family. You know what, they ring, Your Honor,
He's
you know
a-
what I told him?
he's a certified gas man.
I say,
He said
Chuck,
certified,
I
you got his
don't
number.
live like
You
this.
got his
Do I
number
look
You're
on
gonna have
there.
to do better than
Do
bringing
I
a
look
letter
like
from your
I'm on
uncle to
welfare?
tell
That's
me
what
that
he
you
do.
fix
That's
gas
Your
his
in
Honor,
your
look at
business.
my
apartment.
stiletto. Do I look like I'm on welfare?
Your Honor,
No,
I
I'm
work for the
65
utility
years old.
company, right?
I am 65.
I could have fixed
I'm
it
not
myself.
on welfare.
Sir,
And I can drop it like it's hot at 60. He thought he got a food. He thought he had a food.
And now, Judge Faith rules.
tell me about your counterclaim. What's that about?
Well, after the fact, okay, she started calling family members, telling them that I don't fix anything, that the place is a wreck, okay? And the family function, I come in, people looking at me cross-eyed. I'm like, what's going on? And Georgia is spreading all kind of stuff about you. I said, about what? I mean, what's happening?
She told them that there were 6 gas leaks
This
and she had
gas
to
leak
call
was
the fire
fixed.
department.
The gas leak-
Sir,
if
that's
you-
not defamation. She's
No,
saving lives.
No, she's saying I'm a
She's
slumlord.
telling people
That's
there are
defamation.
gas leaks and she
I'm not
doesn't
a
want anyone
slumlord,
else to move into
but
that
I'm
unit.
not a slumlord.
Right.
The gas leaks was fixed.
Listen, as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't want to lease an apartment from you either.
They were fixed the very next day. Your Honor.
Doesn't matter. You breach. She does not have to live in that apartment anymore. She doesn't have to trust
The
you
city
anymore.
said I had to get out.
She doesn't have to take your word for it. She doesn't have to accept a certified letter
Well,
from
here's
your
the thing.
uncle
Well,
that
here's
is
the thing.
fixed.
My rent is due on the 1st, not the 2nd and not the 3rd.
And when there is a
If there was
breach,
an
sir,
issue- if there was-
let me explain the law to you in your state. When there is a breach, she has every right to withhold rent. She did the right thing.
But we didn't know until after the fact. So-
You know now, and since you know now, you refund her $1,477 now, and your counterclaim is dismissed.
Oh, yes!
Signals are crossed with this cell phone fiasco.
What happened to your $5,000, sir?
I wish I knew. So we buy the phones. Now, I go off
Who
the
is
order.
we, sir?
Myself. I buy the phones.
You all do know that I was a former DA and a prosecutor, right? You're bringing this case in front of a former DA?
And later, tensions are high as this landlord-tenant relationship turns into a living nightmare.
He forced himself upon the door frame at one point, screaming at me with rage, exclaiming to me that this was not my apartment.
The message there was, you have to go.
Okay.
Plaintiffs Ahmed Elgazari and Sharif Fazi say the defendant conned them and are suing for the return of $5,000. Defendant Caleb Estrada says they didn't understand the deal, and he lost his money too.
Remain seated and come to order. Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Faith Jenkins presiding. Your Honor, this case is Elgazari Fawzi versus Estrada.
Okay, thanks, Barbara. Okay, Mr. Elgazari,
Yes.
you and your co-plaintiff, Mr. Fawzi, are suing the defendant, Caleb Estrada, for $5,000 for the return of money you say he kept in exchange for an iPhone purchase or transaction you were involved in with the defendant?
Yes.
Okay. How do you know the defendant?
He used to work for a dealership a few years back, and Caleb Estrada, he used to have a detail company. He used to detail cars. A few years down the line, to be exact, it was April 21st, 2014, hanging out with some mutual friends, and that he happened to know them as well. And when he came over, he was saying, I can get you really good iPhones for such a good deal. If you spend a little bit of money, I can get them down to $260 a phone, you know.
Your Honor, can we go back?
Sure.
My buddy our mutual friend knew what I was doing. And he said, hey, Caleb, how do we get into that? So.
Okay, when you say knew what you were doing, what do you mean?
As far as the iPhone business, we would buy them at a wholesale price and resell them.
Okay.
Now, these would go to China, Pakistan, Africa. You know, people pay higher for these type of phones overseas. We meet through his mutual friend. He gives me a call. He's like, hey, I have somebody that's interested in investing.
It wasn't an investment, Your Honor, it's a transaction. I basically gave him a set amount for a set amount of phones.
What was the conversation you had with the defendant about this transaction?
He was like, if you put a good amount down, I can get you phones for—
What's a good amount?
$5,000, you know, $4,000 or $5,000. You can get the phones at $260 a phone.
And?
So I put $2,500.
And sell them for what kind of?
It's an iPhone 5S, the brand new sealed iPhone 5Ss.
Okay.
Now I was supposed to get 19 phones for the exchange of $5,000.
And for 19 phones, you were going to sell them and make what kind of profit?
Well, I mean, I already know how much you can make. I mean, the phones go for retail $6.
But I asked you how much you would make in profit, and you said you didn't know. I'm asking you what you wrote in your complaint about the profit that you planned on making with the
25
phones.
to 30. I had a text message saying that he made $30,000, and he was supposed to come over and give me my share.
Tell me how you make $20,000 to $30,000 profit on 19 iPhones.
19 phones times 650, 700.
Who are you planning on selling these phones to?
I didn't have a plan on who I was going to sell it to yet. I don't know if I was going to post them on eBay, if I had a friend that I was going to sell them to. I didn't know yet. I was just trying to get, I didn't know. I didn't have a plan for those phones.
So you're going to shell out $5,000 in cash
yes.
to get 19 iPhones, and you have no plan on who and when where you're going to sell the iPhones to, but you're going to make $20,000.
Eventually, when I do sell them, yeah.
You all do know that I was a former DA and a prosecutor, right? You're bringing this case in front of a former DA?
Okay.
So somebody better start telling me the truth about what's going on here with these iPhones. You don't make $20,000 on 19 iPhones.
Can I explain that?
I want to go back to, because you say you gave him $5,000 cash. When did you do that?
I didn't give it to him right away. I met him the next day, which is the day the transaction happened. I met him right there. He told me, he's like, give me the money. I'm going to go get him and I'll be back. I didn't feel comfortable giving him the money. So you're in the business, I'm not asking you anything. He's in the business of buying iPhones wholesale. Yes.
You don't go to his business to give him $5,000.
I did. He didn't want me to, due to security measures saying they don't want people knowing that there's so many iPhones available at the store.
They don't want what people to know?
I don't know. That's what, according to him, he doesn't want people.
Sir, you're giving him $5,000.
Yes, that's why I fought. That's why I told him to go. I can't give you the money right then and there, and we almost didn't do the deal. He stopped me. He's like, you know what? I want to make some money too. Just, you can follow me there, just wait around the corner, and so that way nobody knows you're coming.
Where's there?
On Boulevard, I think it was like on Street.
He tells you, wait around the corner because I don't want these people to know that you're coming.
I brought somebody over to the store, because nobody's supposed to know that they
and you
produce
think
that much
this is an
iPhones.
actual legitimate business transaction?
Well, it says wholesale, retail, iPhones, everything on the top of the shop.
You give him $5,000 cash.
I gave it to him right then and there because I knew where he lives.
Where were you when you gave him the $5,000 cash?
Right in his car, right outside on the corner of the shop.
Plaintiffs Ahmed Elgazari and Sharif Fazi are suing their former friend for $5,000 for the loss of 19 iPhones. Defendant Caleb Estrada says they made an investment.
What did he tell you about the transaction?
He told me how much he can get the phones for and what Caleb was saying, and I actually used to sell phones before.
Where were the phones coming from?
From Caleb and the store that he allegedly worked at.
The store that he told you he didn't want you to go to
Yes,
because he
yes,
didn't
ma'am.
want the people to see you at the store.
Right.
Why couldn't the people that where you work at see the plaintiff?
It's not the fact that I don't work for anybody. I do this independently. So I have buddies that could get these phones wholesale. I give them a call. I'm like, hey, and again, it's not only $5,000 going into this deal. We're looking at almost $12,000 in total because I put $6,000 of my money into this deal. Okay? And he's like, you know what? I just don't feel comfortable giving you $5,000. You taking off, and who knows what? I'm like, you know what? If you want to ride with me, that's fine. So we rode together down to Burbank.
I didn't ride with them.
He rode in his car. He followed me. He followed me in his car. Okay, we get to the place. I'm like, give me a second. Now, these guys have been robbed before.
Who are these guys?
Now, these guys are the people I buy phones from. Okay, now.
Who are they?
They're people that buy phones. I don't know the exact name of their company. I don't know the name of the company.
So you just shell out $12,000 to people who buy phones?
No, I've done business with these guys before. I mean, I could tell you they're all wireless store. I don't know their name of the store. I don't remember the name of the store. Okay?
But
again,
you went over there with my money.
Again,
$12,000.
I go there. I buy the phones.
I assume you make all these transactions in cash?
Well, this was cash. So I sent a picture of the phones. Hey, I got them. Now, what do? I have people that buy these phones for $850, $900 a piece.
Now, Your Honor, I didn't know. I basically gave him the money to get me my phones. That's the reason why I want them. So when he gets the phone, he has to give them to me because that's my possession.
We didn't agree on that.
He drove off right after he got the phones.
We did not
He
agree
drove
on
off, and then I had to keep calling him like a couple times
sir.
until he answered. He was like, you know what? I'm on my way to Orange County right now. I should be back like in 45 minutes. Wait for me right there. I'm gonna sell them for more money. I'm gonna get my cut, and you can get your money.
What happened to your $5,000, sir?
I wish I knew. I've been calling him every day for it. I've been asking him every day for it. Every day he's like, I'm gonna give you your money today.
So he
I'm
drove
gonna give you your
off.
money tomorrow.
He drove off. You never saw your $5,000
Since April 22nd
again.
until I filed for this case, I've been calling him almost on a daily basis. I went to his house and knocked on his door. I'm like, where's my money?
Okay,
he was never there. I've never seen him after.
We discussed this already. Okay?
Who discussed this?
We all did discuss this, and we just went through this, didn't we?
Are you talking to me?
I'm just saying.
No, I don't think you're talking to me.
We just went through this, didn't we?
No, we didn't. If I ask you a question, that means I don't have the answer to it. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you may do your shady business deals with him, and you may be able to sell a story to them about iPhones, but when you come here, you will respect this court.
Yes, ma'am.
And if I ask you a question, you answer.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So the $5,000, we buy the phones.
What did you do with the money?
Okay, so we buy the phones. Now, I go off
Who is we, sir?
Myself. I buy the phones, and I pretty much, we're done. And I'm like, hey, okay, my buyer is ready for me in Orange County. I'm gonna shoot over there now.
Who's your buyer?
Again, he's a private person. This guy, this is what he does. This is his business, so this is what he does. You know, I go there, and I'm like, hey, I have the phones. Nothing happens that day. I let him know.
I kept telling him, like, give me my phones. I didn't want it to do that.
Now, this
I didn't want
happens.
him to go over there and take the phones.
He tells me, give me my phones like a week, 2 weeks later.
I told you, give me my phones a week or 2 weeks later?
Yeah, about.
So what did I say for a week or 2 weeks?
My only question to you is who stole the iPhones off the truck? Because you can't tell me we're not dealing with stolen merchandise. So is that your business? You deal with stolen merchandise?
No, I don't. No, we don't.
Who in your family is in law enforcement?
My dad.
Because you wrote in your answer that you would never be involved in a scam because you have a family member who's in law enforcement. Well, you know what? He does not have to go far to look for his next case. All he has to do is call you. This case is dismissed. You guys go home.
Plaintiff Sharia Rochas and her boyfriend Daniel Barnett are suing their former landlady for $2,250 for the return of their security deposit on their apartment. Defendant Mary Nesbitt says she refunded them the money they were owed, but withheld the rest for damages.
Okay, Cherie Arocious?
Yes.
You are suing the defendant, Mary Nesbitt, for the return of a security deposit, correct?
Correct.
Okay, tell me about your case.
Well, I met the defendant in October of 2012. I moved into her townhouse in Brooklyn.
How did you learn that she was renting an apartment in the townhouse?
I used a real estate agent that I had used before.
Okay.
We were looking for a pet-friendly apartment in the same area that we were currently living in.
Okay, and how much was the rent?
It was $25.50.
Did you sign a lease?
I did.
Do you have a copy of that?
I do.
And how much was the security deposit?
The security deposit was also $25.50.
Okay, great.
Here's the lease.
Okay, and the defendant allowed for you to have pets in the unit?
Yes. So we moved in September, in October of 2012, and we quickly realized that Mark had some rules and obligations that we had to follow.
And that's the defendant's son?
Correct.
If I can say, she really felt entitled to everything.
What do you mean by that?
Because we simply asked her to recycle her garbage. It's ruled by the Department of Sanitation.
Right.
Everyone recycles. In the lease, it's laid out, you have to recycle. They yesed me, said they would do it, but they did not follow through.
Was that your only issue with them?
And the noise, of course. They made a lot of noise.
What was the issue with the noise?
The plaintiff would come in late at night, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, but whenever she came in, they played with the dog all during the night, throwing toys across the floor. My son, who lived underneath them, would ask them to, stop. And they would say, yeah, and maybe they would stop for a night or so and continue going back to the same thing.
Well, there are hardwood floors, and whenever you have hardwood floors and you have people living below, there's going to be noise because of the hardwood floors. Had you not considered that when you put in the hardwood floors?
We did consider that, and we also told them, and they agreed that they would put down a rug. They didn't do it right away, and when they did get a rug, they didn't get a rug that was large enough.
I disagree with that statement. We did provide a rug that was large enough for the entire apartment to appease her son.
Mm-hmm.
He was incredibly rude about the recycling. It's not that we didn't want to recycle. It's that he forced my boyfriend to come downstairs and separate the bottle that was in the garbage. I understand the recyclables.
Step over to the lectern. What was the issue with the defendant's son?
Yeah, I mean, just an example of it. One morning, running late, took the garbage down, and he pretty kind of furiously stopped me at the door. I hear a can in the garbage bag. We have to take care of this right now. Opened up the garbage bag, started sorting through the garbage on the street, and fixed it.
If there was a can in the wrong garbage, if sanitation comes, we get fined.
You do get fined.
So
I understand that.
for him to say like he feels he was being harassed, if the can was not in the wrong garbage, he would not have been approached.
Plaintiff Cherie Arocious and her boyfriend Daniel Barnett are suing their former landlady for the return of their security deposit. Defendant Mary Nesbitt says her tenants were loud and disrespectful.
Both of you work?
Yes.
You were working, okay, and were you there in the brownstone the entire time? Are you retired?
I'm retired.
What did you do for a living when you were working?
I worked for the Department of Correction.
Okay, what did you do there?
I was a supervisor.
You were a supervisor?
Yes, I was.
So you only lived in this brownstone for 1 year, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and what day did you sign the lease on?
October 15th, 2012.
What day did you move out?
We moved out October 1st, 2013. We found a new apartment in September because we received a certified letter from the defendant that our rent was going to be raised about 40%, from $25.50 a month to $35.50 a month.
I mean, $1,000, that is a lot.
The message there was, you have to go.
Okay.
That was actually the message.
Which I took. Yeah. I understood that message. We found the apartment shortly after that. We got the message. We moved right away.
Okay, so your lease actually ended on September 30th, 2013, and then the issue became you kept their security deposit. How much of the security deposit did she keep?
$25.50 was the security. She returned $914. I have the check here. She sent a certified check with just the check. No list of deductions, $915 was returned to me.
And you did not cash that check?
No.
Was there a walkthrough before you moved out?
No.
And Ms. Nesbitt, why wasn't there a walkthrough?
She did see the apartment. My son looked at the apartment.
Not with me, he didn't, because 2 weeks before we moved out, I had an altercation with her son. So I did not speak or see her son for 2 weeks because he came up to my apartment one day to complain about music, and he forced himself upon the door frame at one point, screaming at me with rage, exclaiming to me that this was not my apartment. I was trying to tell him that it is my apartment. I pay rent to live here. I expect some respect. He wouldn't let go of the door to the point where I was fearful. I called the defendant crying right after, saying that I was very scared of the situation and I didn't know what to do.
Ms. Nesbitt, is that true?
When he spoke to the plaintiff, he said he was standing in the door, and when he was asking her to be quiet or whatever this conversation was, she went to slam the door in his face.
Okay, so you deducted from their security deposit $1,635.
Yes.
Now, I know that you kept $83 for rent for the first day of October, and you admit you did stay there one day in October. Why did you keep the rest of the security deposit?
We have wooden floors, wooden Brazil floors in the apartment, and it looked like someone took a hammer or some heavy object and just hammered into the floor that it cannot be repaired.
May I see the photos of the
Yes.
damages to the floor?
I could also add, we weren't throwing hammers across the floor.
And
Were the
here's
floors
the other one.
scuffed or damaged at all?
The photos are extreme close-ups of these scratches.
You mean the defendant's photos?
Yes.
Okay.
Scratches could have been from moving in, from furniture, could have been from the dog, but
Let's see the photos.
Most of everything was covered in carpeting.
Are these the scratches you're referring to, Ms. Nesbitt?
That's some of it, yes. That's damage.
Those are scratches on the wood flooring?
Yes.
Okay, so you showed me scuffed floor. What else do you have?
The broken toilet seat.
Did you break the toilet seat?
No, it's a hinge that connects the toilet seat to the toilet. All we did was use the toilet. We didn't do anything to the toilet seat to cause any breaking.
And now, Judge Faith rules.
So I'm ready to rule in this case now. I've looked at all of the evidence, and in these cases, it's a judgment call. It's what is reasonable, normal wear and tear, and the question is, have you proven to me that they damaged the unit enough for you to keep their security deposit in the amount of $1,635, and I find that you have not proven that. So I am going to order you to return to the plaintiff's $2,467. Don't cash the check that she gave you for the $913. I'm going to order you just to return the lump sum, $2,467. I did deduct $83 for the one day that you did stay in October. That's my judgment for the plaintiff.